Aria, welcome to PSC. Kindly introduce your team before we get started.
Mr. Chairman and honorable members, I am Donald Gatraj, the Regional Executive Officer, Region 4. On my right, I should say with me, I have the PS, Ministry of Local Government. On my right is Comrade Austin, the engineer. On my left, the Deputy Regional Executive Officer, Mr. Derek Prasad. On his left, Dr. Gavinash Prasad, the RHO. On the extreme left at the back, Sharon Wills Pantlius Joe. She is a PS Finance. To her right is Ms. Fullington, Nicole Fullington, who's the accounting officer, who's the accountant, sorry. To her right,
Chief Accountant.
the chief accountant, sir. To her right is Mrs. Tembiso Grant, the education officer. Well, to her right is PS, and on her right is Mr. Sukdeo, engineer, and to her right, Ms. Frank. Together, we avail ourselves for the examination of the Public Accounts Committee.
Thank you for availing yourself. Make it sound like you had a choice. Ario, we take the position of the Public Accounts Committee to remind accounting officers of the Legislative Body of Evidence Act, Chapter 108, which speaks to every person examined under this act who willfully gives false evidence shall be guilty of perjury. And we specifically remind accounting officers of this law because it is the position of the Public Accounts Committee that all accounting officers must provide this committee with accurate and truthful information. If you are not in a position at the time when the questions are posed by members to provide PSC with accurate information, then say so. And time will be provided so that you could provide the PSC with such information. So you're so guided, you and all of your officers who would have accompanied you. Members, we have 25 paragraphs to the year 2017 and 20 paragraphs to the year 2018. I put paragraphs 787 to 802 for 2017, and I put paragraphs 910 to 939 for our consideration. The floor is open to all members. Member Maipo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Comrade Chairman. Comrade Chairman, before I go into the paragraphs, permit me to request of the REO to provide us with some guidance. I am aware that you, in your introduction, indicated that you have 2 engineers here, correct?
Yes, comrade. The one is the agriculture.
Which one is the agriculture?
Sukdeo.
Sukdeo.
The works engineer is Mr. Austin.
So Mr. Sukdeo is heading your agriculture program. And how long has Mr. Sukdeo been in the employ of the region?
About 8 months.
Can he confirm when he started, please?
4th of September 2021.
Put on, press the mic.
4th of September 2021.
1st of September 2021. Ario, may I ask who was heading this program before Mr. Sukdeo?
Mr. Austin was doubling as the head of the agriculture
Okay,
program.
may I ask Mr. Austin's period at the RDC? From when?
The 18th of October 2012.
2012. Beautiful. And you have been the head of department for Public Works and Agriculture since 2012?
Yes.
And your DRU, may I ask from when he was there, heading Program 1?
Yes, from 2016 June.
2016 June?
Yeah.
Since then you were program manager for Program 1? 16. Your RHO, REO, can your RHO provide us from the date that he became the RHO?
August 2020.
August 2020. May I ask who was the RHO before?
Quincy Jones.
And he's not here.
No, sir.
The REDO, the education officer, may we have our date of at the region? 3rd of January 2022. And who was the REDO before? And that's the REDO that operated during this period? Okay. Thank you, Comrade Chairman. I merely wanted to establish, so when we question, we can get answers. Sir, I have a question here for para 915 of the 2018 report. I don't know if anybody wants to go before that. We'll go down here.
What's your number, Bishop?
790 of 2017.
915 is 2018, is that?
Paragraph 790 of 2017. Procurement of drugs. The sum of 620 million was budgeted for the procurement of drugs and medical supplies under the Health Services Program. Line item 6221 for 2017. The regional administration spent 2.96 million and issued an interdepartmental warrant of 617 million to the Ministry of Health for the ministry to purchase drugs and medical supplies on behalf of the regional administration. 791. With respect to the departmental warrant, ID 9/2017 was issued on the 24th of November 2017 to the Ministry for 617 million. A financial return was received indicating that a full amount was expended. The table below summarizes expenditure for drugs and medical supplies under the health sector program, line item 6221. A couple of questions and then I will go on. Number one, why only November the warrant was issued? And we're buying drugs for the year 2017. And this money is being spent only at November 2017 first. When were these drugs that were purchased as a result of this interdepartmental warrant for 2017 arrived at the region? When did it arrive?
Ario?
Mr. Chairman, the reason for it only being warranted on the latter part of the year, November, I cannot exactly say why. However, from the allocation that was made, it's recorded in the region from the MMU that we received 194,828,495 as worth of medical supplies in the region.
When did you receive that?
For the year 2017, from the 617 million.
When did you receive it?
Just let me clarify. Do you have a date? There is no date to show when it was received.
Can I receive something and don't have a date?
We have,
In the receiving of anything in the stores, the date that it is received is as important as what is received.
Mr. Chairman, this figure that I am representing here represents a figure that we checked with the MMU, what was delivered to the region. There's no record that we can find to see when it was delivered, a specific date or dates that the drugs were delivered to the region.
But when you received this information, didn't you find it rather strange that the information received then had a date for you to inquire? Because the date of receiving the goods is important. So how can you come to PAC saying that
Wait,
you're
Mr.
unaware
Chairman,
of a date?
Mr. Chairman, I agree, but this information, searching for it, and when we could not have had the date,
Where did you search?
the RHO did the examination in the
Where did you search?
probably
RHRO?
Mr. Chairman, we asked the MMU to provide us a list with the dispatches for 2017. So they provide us with a computerized spreadsheet listing all the health centers within Region 4. And from that, we were able to extract from that document the cost of the drugs supplied to Region 4.
Mr. Chairman, we got to back up here a little bit. The accounting officer was the accounting officer for this region at the time.
no, Mr. Chairman.
Where is the previous accounting officer?
The previous accounting officer is Ms. Pauline.
Is
She is not here at the moment. She's ill. We spoke. I wrote her. We have an email here for her to attend. But I think she said that she's ill and she was supposed to have sought treatment outside. So I don't know if from the time we had sent her, if she has left. But she's aware of, she was informed.
have you been able to get a brief from her as it relates to these queries that are in the Auditor General report for this year that she was the accounting officer?
No,
Have you sought to be briefed?
I did not seek a brief on this. I thought that she would have been here to answer.
And when you learned that she would not have been there?
During the course of last week,
Yeah, but
as a matter of fact, 3 weeks ago, we had spoken on the phone, myself and who was here then. We spoke with her, and she indicated that she is ill and she will not be here. Last week, I sent an email. I understand she was here, so I sent an email with a copy of our two responses, if she had any response to make, any input, and she has not responded.
Mr. Chairman, do we have an excuse from this accounting officer for non-attendance today? So we have an excuse.
But, Comrade Chairman, we established earlier, sir, with your permission, that the regional health officer assumed the duties August 2020. So the one before, is he still working in the system? Or she? I don't know if it was a he or she. The point I'm making, sir, is that these program managers are to be that guidance to the accounting officer or the REO. Any attempt was made to seek clarity, particularly to this issue, from the previous RHO, so that some guidance can be provided. And in terms of record keeping, one would expect that the records at the RHO's office would be there to substantiate these questions that are also being asked. So notwithstanding the absence of the former accounting officer, who is understandably absent, I would like to ask if any attempt was made to get guidance on these paragraphs from the officers that served during this period.
I did not specifically speak with Dr. Jones to have any clarification relating to this issue. With this particular issue, I did not. And I heard you saying he's currently not in the system.
So if nobody sought clarification, how do you plan to answer PAC this afternoon?
Mr. Chairman, in other matters of health, when we sought to contact Mr. Jones, the RHO made attempts on other issues, and he was nowhere to be found. We now have a number for him, and he was not responding. The RHO had indicated that there's some other issues not relating to this, but Mr. Jones cannot be found, cannot be contacted.
So he's not working in the health system anymore?
No, and he's not to be found anywhere you call him. We don't know where he is.
Okay. A follow-up, Mr. Chairman. The RHO told us that he had a spreadsheet from the MMU. The only way that you can do a reconciliation is that the MMU will say, I send this. The region have to say, I received this, and we match the two. If the region is depending upon the MMU's data to answer PAC, it means that there was no reconciliation done.
Can I respond?
Yes,
I'm
you have the floor.
Yeah. This effort was done after we could not have found any evidence of, in a structured way, that we received this for this warrant. There's
Okay.
none.
Let me help.
So
See-
that's
see
where
if
we
we-
went.
see- Let me help to see if we could find it. Request for drugs and medical supplies come by way of a crib.
You need to answer with the mic on, sir. For the
Yes.
record, yeah.
So the crib has a file of every request and receivables. Do we have a file?
There's no file.
Documents have not been properly filed? You're telling us that you want, the region wants 600 and something million. You're saying that you have some documentation to show that you receive 100 and something million. You can't say when in 2017.
That's true. We don't have any record of receipt of its medical supplies in the region in that period.
So how?
Mr. Chair, if I may, Bishop, if you allow me.
Go ahead, Dr. Mario.
So Ario, in the crib book, there's one sheet and 4 other copies. Are you saying that you do not have even those books in which the original cribs were written in, so that you could check for the copies that are there? Are those books missing?
I remember, yes, we have not found any books.
That's serious stuff.
Have you sought from the Ministry of Health copies of those documents? Because they would have to have copies as well. Because
Yes,
there's
Chair,
not
they would have the original copies.
correct. Were efforts made to make contact with the Ministry of Health to get copies of those documents?
Mr. Chairman, we did not make contact with the Ministry of Health for these copies.
Were you aware that that was a possibility to ascertain the documents?
I didn't think about it that way, but now with that possibility existing, I promise to follow this our effort to get it from the Ministry of Health. And if you, within the next week, if you may permit, Comrade Chairman.
Yes, 1 week.
Comrade Chairman,
You have the floor.
may I ask, when these drugs were supplied, this 100 and something million dollars, $194 million, when they came from MMU, where were they stored?
When the MMU dispatches medication, each health facility would have a specific period in which they would receive quarterly supplies. So because Region 4 is on the coast, the MMU would send medication and that goes to the respective health centers. So we can,
Directly?
Yeah, directly. So stuff would go to Diamond or Horace Stelling or Craig or Monrepo, and it
And
goes.
each one of these facilities that are receiving, they are receiving based on the request that they made via the crib.
Correct.
And when they are receiving, don't they have at the respective facilities documentation of showing what they received?
Yes, there is a ledger into which all receipts are entered.
So can the reconciliation not be done using that mechanism, using the ledger that is available at these facilities to verify what is it that MMU sent?
Reconciliation can be done, but that would only guide us to say if we receive X amount of X drug. There is no cost attached to the receipts. So
From MMU?
from MMU. So
So how does the region know that they got the value of 194 million?
well, the MMU, after pursuing them, they subsequently issued from a system that they have that is called MAX, and they extracted all the dispatches from what that they would have done with the price included.
So that's the system that still exists right now?
To my knowledge, yes.
That is how procurement of drugs and medical supplies done still, are you?
The difference in the last budget meeting, we made a comprehensive list to the values of the allocation we got, and we submitted that. We have that copy.
You submitted
We
value?
have it with the budget.
No, but if you submitted, let's you say you want 10 Panadol, you
Right.
put a cost to it?
Across it.
And
It's
that
a
goes-
comprehensive, we have it. I can even lay over that, because we have it. It's a very thick document. We have it on a flash drive.
So you put a cost and you submit it to MMU.
Right, a tentative
So if
cost.
MMU sends back your 10 Panadol at a different cost, what happens there?
We'll have to do reconciliation.
No, but if MMU sends it back to you at a different cost, remember you are putting a cost to MMU.
Right, right.
And MMU sends it back to you with a different cost. It therefore means that some of your drugs will either be shortchanged or you can possibly have
Have an
more
overflow,
drugs than
yeah.
what you have ordered. Right?
That's possible.
But we don't want a situation where you have more drugs than what you have offered. So how did you derive
But
your...
what we'll have there, I'll remember, is that we'll have the amount of drugs, but we may have some additional funds remaining. Because if he asks for 10, and we get 10, we're not having an oversupply. What we may have is probably at the end, if they supply cheaper, we may have a little additional funds at the end, from which we can do other things within the program.
Okay, I understand.
Dr.
Mr. Chair,
Dr.
Mr. Chair,
Mahathir,
if I may.
you have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I think there are two separate issues that we are talking about as one issue. Just for my clarification, so REO, when the RHO would have requisition for drugs from MMU, the drugs that come from MMU should also come at some time or the other. The RHO should get in its possession a costing of those drugs. For example, like Mr. Maipal is going simplistically, if you ask for 10 Panadol, then you will know the price of 10 Panadol from the MMU. But at the same time, the region has about 10% of the monies budgeted, monies that they did not warrant to the ministry, monies that they would spend. Now, the costing of a Panadol that you would buy and the costing that MMU might buy might be different. You might get it cheaper or more expensive or whatever. But bottom line is, I think what we're getting at is that there must be a reconciliation. If you have $100 million, whether you sent it to MMU or you keep 10 million for yourself, but the monies has to be accounted for.
Yes, that's correct, Honorable Member. Are you?
So Dr. Gavinash Prasad RHO should get from MMU at his request a costing of each and every medication and medical supply that he would have received. That would be totaled up with what the region would have advertised, tendered for, and bought as necessary emergency or for whatever reason you purchase, because the bond might not have or whatever. But together it will come up with your sum total that is in the budget for regional.
But Dr. Mahadio, before the RHO and the RU make their requests for medical supplies and drugs, isn't it standard for the region to request from MMU a listing and costing for the drugs and medical supplies that they have, so that the region could be informed as to what is available at MMU, and if needs be, if they need some other drugs and medical supplies that is not available at MMU, they will go out and go to tender? Can you guide us with that?
Well, Mr. Maypaul, yes, but I would prefer the RHO tell us what is the system right now, because I know that that is the system that is in place, but let the RHO answers what is the system in place and how, when do they purchase emergency supplies as the case might be. I think it would be better coming from.
Go ahead, HR.
The current system utilized to procure emergency, we would verify that there is nil at the bond. Region 4, generally we would ask the bond to indicate to us that they do not have a particular medication. And when we have that confirmation from them, providing that it's something that is urgently needed, the region will then procure, but in small quantities to operate the system until the bond can provide substantial quantities. So generally, we don't procure extremely large quantities of medication.
When you say, Chair, through you, when you say bond, you're talking MMU.
Yes, I'm referring to the MMU.
The system that we have been brought up to speed with by other regions, they would request from MMU a listing of the drugs and medical supplies that MMU has and a cost to it. And that comes to the respective regions, and then they will put their order in keeping with that guidance. That's a guidance that they get from MMU. So they know that they're not going to go to tender for X or Y because MMU has it. That's the guidance. Are you saying that you don't have that guidance?
So,
but you're the RHO.
Yeah, but just to add.
Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Dr. Mahadia.
Thank you. So, Mr. Maypaul, we need to bear in mind that that it's a dynamic situation. So today they might not have Panadol, but a shipment comes in tomorrow or Monday or whatever. The regions, and the RH, you could say whether it is so or not, but the regions are given dates on which, because we have to supply basically 10 regions, Georgetown is supplied separately. And in, like Dr. Gavinar said, it has to be by health facility even sometimes. So the regions are giving specific dates when they are to requisition on like a statutory something. On the 15th of every month you could requisition or whatever. So by that time, specific to that date, they're advised that you have this or you don't have this or whatever. If additional additional medicines or medical supplies come in and they had a nil item, they're informed that, okay, you could now requisition for this, although it is not their date to requisition for it. So it is a dynamic process, and as far as I know, Dr. Gavinash could confirm or deny. As far as I know, a monthly list is sent out to the regions, advising them as to what is the nil list. So we have an essential drugs list that has got hundreds of drugs per facility, depending on the level of the facility, and they're given a nil list because the nil list is much shorter than your essential drugs list. So they're advised these things here are nil at the MMU at this time. So they would know that these makes no sense to order these. they order what is there, and those, if they need them, if they're emergency drugs, then they would then take that list and requisition or request the RU to purchase through whatever system they have. Dr. Gavinash, please confirm whether that is so or whether you have a different system.
What you're saying is correct, Doc.
Yeah, well, that is the list I was asking about that guides the region in order of them procuring.
Yes, in addition to that, we do have a Wednesday meeting with the drug bond. It's every week, so we are updated on what is available and what is not available at the bond.
Chairman, I want to draw the region's attention to paragraph 912, 913, just supposing it along with paragraph 790. It's the same issue that occurred in 2018. So in 2017, you got 620 million. You spent 2.960 in the region, and you warranted 617 million on the 21st of November.
That's correct.
You only received 180, how much?
194 million,
194 million.
828,000.
So out of the 617, based upon whatever mechanism you all had, you said you could at least account for 194. Was the remaining sums of this 617 returned to the consolidated fund as unexpended?
No.
No. Good. So in 2018, you got $620 million budgeted, and you sent 618 million to the MMU.
That's correct.
So between November 2017 and February 2018, you sent $1.2 billion to the Ministry of Health
That's correct.
by the way of interdepartmental warrant for drugs and medical supplies.
That's correct.
When did you receive the full amount of drugs in this total?
Mr. Chairman, here again, we cannot establish a date.
But did we receive 1.2 billion?
No, Mr. Chairman. No, in the record shows that.
What does the record show?
For 617, 194,828,495, and for 2018, 154,598,691.
That's for the entire year?
Right.
Be certain with your response.
Right, for the two warrants. One warrant is for 2017 and the other warrant is for 2018. So yes, it is for the respective full years.
So 194 and 150 something.
Yeah,
So we call it 250 million.
correct.
250 million out of 1.2 plus billion between 2017 and 2018. And we have not been able to reconcile where the rest of the money is or where the drugs are.
That's correct.
Auditor General, would you guide us here on what's happening here? These monies have been returned to the consolidated fund. What is happening here?
Mr. Chair, through the chair, sorry.
Go ahead.
In 2017, according to the RU, he said he received 194, and in 2018, you said 154?
Yes,
So
Yeah.
that,
it's 350.
just for the member, so that could be roughly 350 something, not 250 something.
Yes, sorry.
But according to the other regions, these monies went to the Ministry of Health. So they would have utilized it generally to purchase drugs, whether for the region or not. And according to the other regions, we also saw in some cases where the amount warranted, either they received extra or less. But in this case for Region 4, you're saying you only received 194 for 2017, 154 for 2018. I remember that at some time ago, there was to put a system in place where there was to do reconciliation with computers at the ministry, at the various regions, so that you could actually coordinate this type of movement. And unless we do a proper reconciliation, we will be unable to see what happened. I think, Ms. Chapman, you could comment on the unspent balance, but there's none.
If I could recall, AG, what you just said to the chair, what you alluded to, I think it was when we were reviewing 2015 report, when the Ministry of Health alluded that they should have gotten an integrated system between the MMU and the other and all the regions, but I don't think that was fulfilled. That commitment was fulfilled so far.
But in the absence of computers,
There is still need for reconciliation.
reconciliation
yeah.
used to be done long before computers came into existence. I paid this and I got counted off 50 antibiotic, 12 aspirin, 8 syringe, 15 gloves, and we stock it. And we know the value of it. We're talking here, an accounting officer in 2 years have been unable to say $800+ million if we have received or we haven't received. This is a case of alarm, and that's why I'm asking for the documentation. And I think Dr. Mahadio highlighted that. But then you indicated to me you can't be, the books can't be found. Where are the documentation? If everything is above board, and it's just a case where somebody didn't do the work to its finality in getting the figures documented, that could still be done by a competent person today. Bring the documents in and we do the tally and the reconciliation. But if we don't have the documentation to get that work done, it's cause for alarm. Where would the books be? Mr. Chairman, I'm asking that this paragraph be left open for further examination, because we will have to do some further research, whether it's the Ministry of Health or all the health centers, to get documentation in. And I don't think they could get it done in a week, but it's $800 million outstanding here for 2 years.
Member, I would rather you ask your questions and already are your attempt to or provide us with these responses.
But I've already asked the question. You see, he can't.
Well,
If you don't have the documents, I can't ask the question.
well, he has asked for a week to provide the documents.
Could you provide the documents in a week that you haven't found?
The extent of the information required, Mr. Chairman, a week for this would be difficult.
What's the extent of the information? The information is not hidden somewhere. It's at the Ministry of Health. Make your request to the Ministry of Health and they can assist you in providing the information.
Okay, that one is a week, but we're having to go to the various health centers and check their books as to what they received. That's what I was saying, that might be more than a week. But we want to get the information as what was transferred to the region.
Sir, we believe a week is sufficient. We have had our agencies come before us and more information was requested and they would have provided. Write all of your health centers and let them provide you with the information.
Chairman.
You have the floor, member.
Chair, may I ask the RHO to provide us with a breakdown of his organogram in terms of, you have a medical superintendent there?
Where exactly?
In your region.
There is a medical
After you as RHO in the health program, health delivery program, who's the next person?
So We have two supervising officers because of the geography of the region.
Yeah.
So a medical officer is responsible for the East Bank and another for the East Coast. Apart from those, we have a medical superintendent at the Diamond Hospital.
So these two officers that are responsible, one for the East Coast and one for the East Bank, is it a new system or that was how it was all the time? You inherited that?
Yes,
So that is how it was?
yes.
And these officers are new officers or they were there prior years?
They are new.
So, and the officers who were there before, they're still in your system?
Most of them left.
What I'm trying to establish, Comrade Chairman, is that if there is a system in terms of management of the health delivery program, then I refuse to believe that all of these documents have suddenly disappeared. There has to be some record keeping that is existing in the office of the officer that was responsible of the East Bank and the one that was responsible for the East Coast. And also there should be some documentation at the level of the RHO's office. When I go through the 2016, sir, the 2016 report of the Public Accounts Committee, and this region was examined, documentation and so on were available to justify when this region was examined when they were examining the 2016, and documentations were provided so as to justify and answer queries. So to suddenly hear that documentation is not available for 2017, something doesn't sound right. So I would like to ask the RHO if any attempt was made by him, who's new to the job, understandably, and if any attempt was made by him so as to find these documents, or it is just a conclusion because they don't have it here that they don't have documentation.
HRO?
So when I took over the office of the RHO in 2020 of August, no document was handed to me. The office was literally empty. The persons who were working there, they went away. And there were two officers who were on the East Bank. Both of them left. And the East Coast is controlled by Paradise, and there was nothing there. Not even digital records were handed over.
Okay, listen. The ministry, you warrant your request to the Ministry of Health for these drugs. When the drugs come, it is dispatched to the respective health centers. We are of the view that the custodian of these records that are supposedly missing can be garnered from the Ministry of Health. So within a week's time, make all of the necessary efforts to make contact with the Ministry of Health so that it can assist in providing you with these documentations.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Dr. Mahdia.
So, Mr. Chair, I support you because the minimum that could be garnered is the information from the Ministry of Health, from the MMU, as to what medications, the costs of it, what medical supplies and the costs of it, and that should be able to provide us, at least from one side, with information that X amount of dollars was sent back to the region. Whether we could conform by conforming at the primary healthcare level or the secondary healthcare level, that indeed these medical supplies and medicines were received, that's another matter. But at least that party you're talking about can be confirmed. And like it was said before, if the books are there, and sorry, Mr. Chair, but I also have that experience, right? So it's nothing new, but at least we could get from MMU what was the cost that was sent to see whether the amount of money sent from MMU's perspective was supplied.
Chair.
Mr. Chair, just for the purposes, if I just use the Ministry of Health's information, which is really the MMU is an agent of the Ministry of Health. monies came from agency, wherever 4, region 4. The reconciliation got to be done with 2 separate sets of documents. Ministry says, I send this. The region says, I receive this. And then we value it.
Is the audit office in possession of any of the documentation in this regard for Region 4? Help bring some clarity here as well.
Mr. Chair, all we have is that the warrant that was sent and the financial return showing that all the money was expended by the ministry.
Okay, can you provide Region 4 as well with those documentation, so when they compiling it to
Yeah.
send to the PSC, we will be so guided.
And at present, they are presently doing stock count at the Ministry of Health, the MMU bond, after the incident that happened. And this is one of the issues that we are looking at, of what system they have in place to send back to the various regions that they have in respect of those warrants.
Yes.
Chair, if I may, I was
Go
just
ahead.
about to raise the same point that AG raised there, that the information from the MMU might not be available at this time because they're literally closed for stock taking. All their records and so would be unavailable. So I think we may need to give this region some additional time. Maybe we could ask the PS as to when this stock taking is expected to be completed, and maybe 1 week after that date. And like I said, we'll only be getting one side of the information. We won't know whether the health centers received it or not, based on whether they have their ledgers, they have their stock books. And so
Yeah, but
just to let you know that the stock taking might interfere, so the timings that we are giving the REO might not actually be practical.
Yeah, but what does this stock taking has to do with the records for this 2017-2018?
It's a general, it's an investigation actually, Chair.
I agree, but the records will still be at the ministry because the monies were warranted.
The records are at MMU.
Good. So that this is not for present day. This is for 2017-2018. So I believe it's still accessible.
Yes.
Chair, I don't know. I think we should be guided by the PS as to whether the records are accessible or not.
Well, we can ask the clerk to write the PS as well to assist the region
Right.
in ascertaining
Right.
these records. So that's the direction we will go. Go ahead, Member Maipua.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair, permit me to turn our attention to 2017 para 797.
We are finished with this issue of the drugs and medical supplies.
Yes.
No, I still have a few questions on this, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, that's for 2018.
Both 2017 and
Oh,
2018.
go ahead.
I'm still on the paragraph 790, all the way to 792 of 2017, and 912 all the way to 913 on 2018. Could the RHO indicate to PSC or the REO what is the system that is used for the verification of cost for items? The understanding is that you send the money to the Ministry of Health so you could get a cheaper cost in the economy of scales. You buy on a smaller scale in an emergency way just to fulfill any gaps that may exist. What is the system that is used for the verification of costs?
Mr. Chairman, from the 10% that is not warranted to the Ministry of Health, we spend that in the region after accessing a list from the ministry MMU that they don't have it. So from that, we purchase emergency drugs, things like reagents, etc., or any drugs that is expired that we have. And the MMU, even if they have, might have the same date that we have. So we purchase. They are more expensive, as you say. And I have not seen a breakdown of the cost from the drug supplied from the ministry to do any reconciliation.
So you can determine if you're getting value
Right.
because you don't know amounts, neither you don't know cost. Auditor General, could you advise PAC how this matter could be remedied? Because this is a serious matter.
And this was still pertains present day?
Well, we supplied a list now.
Is it different from what happened then? No.
Well, to the extent that we get the list, etc., but we don't get the cost.
So the same thing applies. Okay. AG?
Mr. Chair, as I mentioned earlier, I think an attempt was made several years ago where Ms. Lawrence was there, that they need to have, just like an IFMIS, where you have specialized computer are linked to the financial transaction of government, that you need these specialized computers at all the Ministry of Health in the regions to link to the IFMIS, to the MMU system, because the MMU system is computerized. They no longer keep manual system of stock ledgers and bill cards. So in order for you to, by some mechanism, whatever, as the REO is saying, they send a list. You need to have that reconciliation, and until we get that type of reconciliation, we will not know whether you receive value for money in terms of the warrant. So I think some IT system should be developed, especially for this
As a program.
reconciliation to be done, or some program.
So that's a recommendation you would put.
Yes, and I think the Accountant General could comment on that also.
Go ahead, AG.
I concur with AG because that's the only way we will be able to resolve this issue, because it's been for the past how many years you've been across all the regions we have the same issue.
Interlinking kind of system.
Yeah, where you probably need to have an integrated system between MMU and the regions.
Well,
Mr. Chair, may I follow up?
that's a recommendation that the PSC will put.
As a follow-up,
Go ahead.
do the regions send their trucks to collect supplies from the MMU? Like other regions do. Region 4 do the same thing, send their canter to collect supplies?
Yes, sir.
All right? If a canter go and it is loaded up, you don't have a discharge of waste in the canter?
The quantities issued are recorded against a copy of the CRIF. So as an example, let's say Panadol, we would have requested 500. They give us 500 Panadol. So there's a column on that CRIF for quantity, and that's how we know what quantity is provided.
But then when it reaches to you, do you do a check-off?
Yes, well, prior to uplifting any medication from the bond, a team from Region 4 would go to the MMU to verify the quantities that they're stating, because not in all instances would you get exactly what you ask for. It's dependent on a number of factors.
So a check-off is done,
Yes, sir.
and then it goes to the canter,
Yes.
and that canter has a discharge slip of what is coming out.
It's the CRIV.
Besides the crib, it's only the crib the canter operating with?
To my knowledge, yes.
So a canter drives into the barn and load up supplies. Only the crib is the verification of what the canter bringing out?
The CRIV is what you call a combined receipt, and it's a voucher. So that's the total.
That's adequate.
Yeah, that's the one for Ministry of Health that was recommended. Not like, right.
So it substitutes. So how do we come from departure to arrival? I could pick up a canter load of stuff at MMU, and I'm heading to Diamond Hospital. How do I determine what is delivered at Diamond?
Sir, in almost all instances, there is a staff from the pharmacy who accompanies that
Yeah,
transport.
I know that, but still when you reach there, you gotta do offloading and checking. It going into stores.
Correct.
I'm trying to help you to track the information that we don't seem to have a paper trail of information of every step of the way.
So when it arrives at the facility, it then goes into a register.
It goes into a
The
register.
quantities.
At the
quantities.
stores.
Yes, at the stores of the facility.
Of the various
Yes,
facilities.
yes.
So the record's supposed to be at the stores.
Yes, but that record would only have quantity
Not cost.
received, not cost.
Right.
Understood.
So once we could verify quantities now, an easier way, because the Procurement Act allows for it, you can go on the internet and search for value. And you'll be able to get an idea of what value you receive. So if you have a dispute with the MMU, you'll be able to say, look, based upon the Procurement Act clause so-and-so, which I'm allowed to search on the internet, it's stated in the Procurement Act, I have received this, and this is the proposed cost. How could you account for my 800 million because I only got 650 million out of this? What cost did you acquire at? So let's put cost to this. Because we got to get this reconciled. This is government money that must be accounted for.
But, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
in that case, the system would not recommend, because the whole idea of the Ministry of Health purchasing the item is
Benefit
supposed to
from
get it at
economies
a
of
lower
scale.
price.
Yes.
So if you use the higher price, then they might
But at
account for
least-
more than 600 million.
But at least you get a gauge to know if it's
I would not recommend it. What we recommend is the ministry, the MMU, provide to these regions a list of the costs for the drugs. And the whole idea of this, the diamond bond and it being computerized, is by a press of a button, we should be able to get that information.
But AG as well. Every time the MMU is buying, a warrant has to be issued
Right.
with a list. And from that contract that come through MP-Tab, you got to list the price of every item.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to find this thing and reconcile it.
No, that's what I'm saying. That is why you need two computers to specially linked up in order
Yeah, but the understanding I got is that the regions provide the list of drugs and a proposed price. So
Mr. Chair, in most cases, it would not be bought at procured at a price.
that's what I'm
They
saying.
just have a projected price. That's what they
That is
state.
true, and that is why I think the AG's recommendation is more applicable here, where the price for these respective drugs come from MMU, and then it goes to the region. So the region looks at that price list and for all the drugs, and then make their request and send the warrant to compensate the amount of drugs and the prices that MMU would have sent to the respective regions. And you have a uniform list of drugs and prices that all of the regions will warrant their requests based on that guidance from MMU, rather than the region by guess.
Or, Mr. Chair, we go back to the system where the MMU is given the money under the budget and they purchase it, and they go back to that system.
That could work too.
Right. That was the other system that was being used before.
But the question is why the system changed. Was it to make it effective? Or I don't know. We need to do an evaluation probably of both methods that was used and then make a determination which is most applicable for the situation.
Mr. Chair, I think we should make a serious call for there to be a collaborative approach between the accounting general, the auditor general, the FS and the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Health, to put a system in place of accountability, because this matter continues since this system was changed. It creates loopholes, because you're never sure what you're getting, and you're never sure the value of what you're getting. And the intent was to make it more efficient and give us value for money. And obviously, it's not serving that purpose. If you read the Auditor General's reports of several years, you will see this is an outstanding issue. And it's an outstanding issue even in the context of drug shortages reported in various places. So it's something that got to be fixed. And we have to put the system in place. So I'm proposing that there be a sit down, apart from just saying the computers, while we get to the capital expenditure for the computers and the software, we have to put a system in place of greater accountability here. It's needed.
Member Maipo.
Chairman, I turn your attention to 2017 para 797, and my concern goes through to para 801, 798, 799, 800, and 801. And I see that there are a series of overpayments. And I was happy when we established that the engineer, Mr. Austin, has been the senior engineer and head of Public Works program since the 18th of October 2012. Would the engineer, if we can start with para 797, advise on what caused the overpayments for this paragraph?
For this, to the chair, for this said project, there was an oversight.
There was an oversight?
Yeah.
Oversight of what?
To the visit. At the set time, they were understaffed.
Who were understaffed?
The department.
Let's start from scratch. How many staff were present at the Public Works Department in 2017? You as the chief engineer.
Yes. Second engineer.
This a second engineer.
Yes, and overseer.
The second engineer and an overseer.
Yeah.
So you had no superintendent of work or a clerk of work.
No, we didn't have that.
So 3 persons. The contract for repair to Susaik Medex Quarter, Susaik, was awarded by the Regional Tender Board in the sum of 5.559 million to the lowest of 5 bidders. The engineer's estimate was 5.8 million. As at 31st of December 2017, amount totaling 5.447 million were paid to the contractor. Based on the physical verification of the completed works, measurements calculated, and the records presented, the defects liability period could not be determined from the document examined, and the following overpayments were discovered. Can we start with what was the defect liability period?
The defect liability period was 2 months.
2 months?
Yeah.
And how do you know that?
The contract was stated so.
But is that not the contract that was supposed to be submitted to the AG for him to verify that, as opposed to him stating it in the finding of the Auditor General?
Yeah.
Was that document submitted to him?
Yes.
But clearly the AG is saying that there was no document. Can we ask the AG for some verification? The engineer has indicated that yes, the document was submitted that shows the defects liability period.
Through the chair, the document is submitted after the fact.
The
After this
document was
report
submitted,
published. After this report was published.
so the document was submitted.
Yes.
Can I ask, how is it that this 5.447 million was paid. How many payments were made?
It was paid in interim. First,
Huh?
to be sincere, let me see if I could recall that. Can't recall directly how much payment was made.
I don't see you having any documents in front of you, sir.
Yes, I'm following with documents there.
So you don't know how many payments
The
were made?
interim payment, I can't recall directly.
Well, I would like to guide you that 3 payments were made. Can you confirm that?
Yeah. I don't have it at hand to confirm. Sure.
Before a payment is made, what is the procedure?
The procedure is to review works and pay it for measured works.
So was this work measured by you?
As I said, this was an oversight with the magnitude of work that was tasked upon me.
So
oversight.
was paragraph 798 an oversight to the contract for emergency repairs to LBI Secondary, which was awarded by the Regional Tender Board, and a sum of 263,000 overpaid. For para 799, contract for the repairs of RC culvert at Northern Section Entrance Gate, Teachers Quarters Compound Bladen Hall, awarded in the sum of 3.635 million, a sum of 1.395 million overpaid, and the contract for emergency work to Strathoven, if that's the right pronunciation, Primary School, Cane Grove, awarded in the sum of 3.511 million and an overpayment of 778,000. Were all of these oversights on your part?
No. Sure.
So please provide us with some guidance.
For 799, there was a clarification on a revisit with the auditor for documentation. For 798, was an oversight by my officer.
I don't understand.
But however,
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, sir.
of finance. With the Soosdijk living quarters, there is an overpayment. The engineer went back there, did an inspection.
Your engineer.
Mr. Austin, he took photographs of what was done, but the audit department cannot accept that. Next week, I'm informed that they will visit this program. Some work was done to correct this amount that was overpaid.
But how did we get to the overpayment? The engineer is supposed to measure the work and pay as per bill of quantities. And pay as per bill of quantities, create certificates of payment, and then you have a final certificate of completion, which verifies that the contract was done as stipulated by the bill of quantities. How is it that you measure work, engineer? How is it that after you measure work and you do your certificate of completion and you submit it to the accounts department to process payment, how is it that you get work that is not measured to be paid for? Is it that you're saying that you never measured the work? Did you measure the work?
that's not the case.
Did you measure the work, sir?
First visit, interim, as mentioned, interim payments were made. First visit were made, measurement were taken. Second visit was made, measurement was taken. But what may had happened that
No, not what may have happened. What happened? Tell us what happened, not what you
For the
think
final visit, given the bulk of the work and the task upon officer,
Can I ask the AG office, what was the last payment that was made on this project? 797. The final payment, what was it?
Through the chair, the
Right.
final payment was in the sum of $553,033.
$553,033,
And $33.
and the overpayment that was made is $1,009,000 on this project. So when you measure, if you made your 3 payments were made, right, AG office?
Correct.
3 payments were made. You said your first visit, you measured and you paid
on this particular project.
on this particular project.
Yeah.
Fine. Your second visit, you measured.
For this particular project, can't recall exactly on this.
No, but you just said to us that there were 3 visits. You said your first visit you measure and then you start processing for payment. You also said your second visit you measured and processed for third payment. And you said your third visit, because of the bulk of work, it was an oversight. So let's assume you did not measure on your third visit because you had a bulk of work, and in an effort to get the work off, you assumed everything went well and you processed the third payment. But your third payment is less than your overpayment. So which means that your second payment was measured inaccurately if you did measure it. Because in your third payment, if you did not measure and you did measure for your first and second payment, then your third payment, the overpayment, should have been less than what is your third payment. So I'm putting to you, sir, and I would like you to confirm whether it's true or not, that you did not measure this work.
The second, it was an inaccurate measurement, I said.
The second was an inaccurate measurement.
Yes.
So how is it that it was inaccurately measured? You measured it inaccurately?
Yes.
Now this is a percentage of this total sum. The total sum that this region expended on maintenance work was $683,624,000. The AG just extracted a few projects, just a few projects, to see what's going on, and he found all that he extracted from 789 to 801, there were overpayments. The possibility, if one is to use that as a benchmark, is that perhaps all of them had overpayment. So I believe that this was an injustice to the system and a misguidance to your accounting officer and the accounts department for them to process payment. If the AG is to go through this entire sum, the possibility exists that we'll find a larger amount as overpayment. And one of the fundamental problems we are finding at this PAC is engineers in particular not doing what they have to do. And that is to get up and get out of their office, go into the fields, measure the work, and pay as per measured works. If that is to happen, then this Auditor General's report is going to be very, very thin. Majority of it here focuses on overpayment, and it comes from the technical officer doing the wrong thing. And then the accounting officer has to come and sit and justify the wrong with answers and tell us that it will never happen again, and we will endeavor to ensure it doesn't happen. Year after year, we're seeing that in the Auditor General's report as the region's response. We are sorry for the overpayment. We will not let it happen again. Chair, we cannot continue to have that excuse. And I will endeavor to say to the REO that you need to have measurements You need to have measures in place so as to ensure that your technical officer do what is right, and that is pay for measured works. What mechanism do you have in place, Ario, to ensure that these overpayments don't reoccur?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, every payment has got to pass through me, and I particularly check on the measured work. No payment.
Which is a certificate.
The certificate, which the engineer prepares or the other engineers, probably one doing like in education, primary, nursery, so on, all have to have on the measured work certificate, work satisfactory completed.
But Ario, that is the
based-
system.
So we allow the REO to finish and then...
Right,
then
and that is based on their visit, because there's a status report now that the engineers have to provide. And in that status report shows percentage of work completed and percentage of payment made to the work. So you want to have a case where 50% of the work completed based on the visit, and we're paying 75% of the contract. It must at all times be in keeping. And of course, I impress upon the engineers now that for every payment, they have to visit the field, not only leave the office, but get onto the work site and do the physical checks.
But Ario, that is the system that has been in place for years, where the engineer is required to visit, measure, and create the certificate of payment. It is his office that has to generate the certificate of payment and create the certificate of completion for payment. So he has to do that. I don't disagree with your system. That is what has been there all the time. But I believe that you arrive at overpayment when they try to cook the book by saying that they measured, put the measurement that they expect should have been there, and then generate that. And when the field auditors from the Auditor General's office come and measure, they see something totally different. And that confirms falsification of document. Now, does this region have a functioning works committee?
There is a functioning works committee.
Does your works committee visit these sites with the engineer when they make these measurements?
The works committee, they decide whether they visit or not during the course of the work or the final stages of the work. That is their decision.
Yes, and does your engineer accompany them?
Once they request the engineer, sometimes they go without the engineer by themselves, but once they request the engineer has to make himself available.
But your engineer is the technical officer of your region for these works. The works committee people are from your RDC.
That's right.
And they are more than less persons who have to be guided by your engineer. Does your works committee get a bill of quantities to see if 10 of this is necessary, 15 of this, or 20 of this? Do they get a copy of that?
The bill of quantities are available. We make them available once they need them.
No, not once we need them.
Once they need them, we provide them.
Yes, but how do they know that they will need it? They have to be guided. And it's your engineer who is expected to provide that guidance to your works committee. Agree?
Yeah, I agree.
So if the works committee is going to visit a site, they're not just going to look at the beautification of the site. They're going to ensure that the work is carried out as per bill of quantities. Agree?
That's right. I agree.
And they're expected to be guided by your engineer. And your engineer is to tell them that, well, 5/8 steel rod is to be used here, and what we see is that they're using 3/8. It's wrong. We have to stop that. They got to put the right steel rod because that was spelled out in the bill of quantities.
Yes.
So what I'm gathering from you, sir, is that your engineer is not accompanying your works committee on visits that they are making as per visit. Can you therefore endeavor, as an advice, to ensure that your engineer accompanies the works committee on their visit so that the works committee could also verify, because the works committee sign on those documents too, right? so that when the Works Committee puts its signature there, it is an additional mechanism for proper accountability and transparency to verify that the engineer does measure and does pay as per measured works.
And the technical aspect, yes. But, Committee Chairman,
Chair, if I may.
Allow the REO to respond, then I'll give you the floor, Dr. Madia.
as it is with the project, the Works Committee may make 4, 5 visits to a project, but the main one is the final one,
Yes.
where the contractor have been declared to the engineer that he or she has completed. The engineer has to check off on that work and takes responsibility for that work. So with the visit with the Works Committee, it is the engineer who is now defending the work, because he would have taken responsibility from the contract. He would have checked that this is in play, the bill of quantity and so on. But during the course of the project, not all the visits, the engineer is required to be there.
I am accepting that.
So I just want to correct that before you say that the Works Committee, the engineer must be present. What I'm saying,
The last one.
At least the final inspection, where the engineer would have taken command of the project and satisfied. Upon that satisfaction, he then invites the Works Committee that this project or these projects are available for a final inspection. Those projects, he ought to be present.
And I'm saying to you, Comrade Ario, that we have before us here para 797, 798, 799, 800, 801, and also 796, where all of them shows us that overpayments were made. The assumption on my part is that overpayments come when the engineers verify that the works were not measured, at least accurately. And I am putting to you or requesting of you as an additional measure so as to safeguard yourself and the region going forward, that you should ensure as the accounting officer that at least the last visit of all your projects that are made by the Works Committee, your engineer goes also, verify the measurement, and you pay as per measured work. And that's an advice so that going forward, we don't have a reoccurrence of overpayment in your region.
Thank you.
Dr. Mahdi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just want to add a note of caution that the REO could make the engineer available, and he should do so, and the engineer should visit with the Works Committee. But there might be times when the Works Committee might want to do an independent visit and get an independent opinion. So I don't know that the REO, it is within his portfolio that he can instruct the Works Committee that the engineer must go with them whenever they are visiting.
No, but I never said that. For clarity, I never said that, Comrade Chairman. I never said that.
Go ahead, Member Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, in many of the instances cited, the overpayments are things that are quite visible to the eye, like missing windows, missing locks, missing a whole gate or a steel structure, or missing painting done. So it's not these overpayments, you don't really have to go and do deep investigative work to find these overpayments. So it's quite strange that the engineers would be signing off on them, and I hope, well, we have some assurances that these things, systems will be put in place to avoid reoccurrence. And I noted that the region has been a bit successful in recovering some of the overpayments. And I want to direct the accounting officer to, it's what, 803. Mr. Chairman, this matter of occupation of the government quarters have been engaging the attention of the Auditor General for quite a few years. And as of now, I note in the REO's recent submission, they're still to verify 130 quarters, and this is going back to 2017. Can we get an update from the REO or the accounting officer? What is the status and what is preventing the REO from verifying whether persons qualified to occupy these quarters are actually occupying these quarters? Or what are the difficulties that the region is encountering in settling this matter?
Mr. Chairman, the inherent problem in this aspect of the audit is establishing these buildings, these government buildings. Some of these buildings date back in the late 60s, 70s, the entire Timeri area. Some of them are occupied, for which a rental of $50 a month is paid. These buildings were assigned to, I think, civil aviation. They may have had 6 buildings. In terms of, they would then, laborers would live in them, clerks and so on would live in them. In our level, they do not qualify for a government building. But for CAG, they would have these levels of workers occupying them. We don't say anything about those. Those that we have some control over and are still that we can, within our purview, are those for some of our senior staff. To date, we have done the letters and we have started deducting from some of the staff who are entitled. And most of the staff that we are deducting from or occupying government quarters that we know of are entitled and are paying. Most of them the 10% because we have not been furnishing them. This, however, we are doing now for our present day operations, checking to see if we can salvage anything from the Timeri Red Hill area, where most of those buildings were since in the 70s, which I know. The other buildings, some people have modified them. They have changed the structure, shape, and color, and we cannot in any definitive way for those buildings, some of them, to say, well, yes, these are government buildings. But this effort is ongoing, as recorded there, and the honorable member has indicated. It's something that we have to do on a continuous basis until we come to a position where we can say, well, you know, we should pay for this or this is our building.
I appreciate what the REO is saying, Mr. Chairman, but I still think of the 130, it is stated here because somewhere it has been established that this 138 quarters belongs to the RDC number 4. And there must be some foundation for this claim, whether it's housed at the RDC or at the Auditor General office. But I don't think the Auditor General report will cite 138 quarters without some basis as for establishing ownership. And I think that we can start there. But to have 138 quarters, 18 we know are occupied by persons, of which 8 of them I think are paying some amount of rent. So you'll have to make some efforts to collect your rent from the other 10 whilst you move to establish what is happening with the other 130. Regardless of modification, there must be some, like I said, some basis for the Auditor General to cite them as being property belonging to the RDC. Mr. Chairman, if I can take our attention to 806, this would be 2017. The Auditor General is stating here at 806, and I don't see it appearing in 2018, that there's an award for a bridge here at Victoria. And 806, this is a sizable contract, $5 million, and it is not clear how this award was made to this particular contract. And the REO in his response can bring us up to date on how this award was made and whether this project has been completed. The fact that it does not appear in 2018 seems to be pointing to the direction of a project that has been completed. But I will not take that as being definitive, but if the REO can give us an update on this project.
Ario?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. From the documents that we have seen, we were able to get the tender board minutes for 2017. And the award, as our response, the region response was to the third lowest and not the ninth. Examination of the tender board minute shows the award to the, I could say the company, Plan B Construction, was the ninth lowest, because you have some who were really low in the, this contract was awarded for $5,097,928. And you have some as low as 4 million and so on. But
What was the engineer's estimate?
The engineer
Not the
estimate-
lowest bidder, but the lowest
Right.
responsive bidder.
the engineer estimate was 6,500,000.
Good.
And you had 47 tenders.
Yes.
And it was awarded to the ninth lowest. We cannot say, we have not seen the evaluation report to say if the others were responsive, if they were non-responsive. So this figure here is the one, our response, or 10, was to the third lowest responsive bidder. In that, do I need to? It could have been the two below it, responsive, but for some reason,
But Dario, as the secretary of the tender board, I want to believe that you are aware that the awarding of the chair, no, he's the secretary, chairman of the tender board. You should be aware that the awarding of the contract doesn't necessarily have to go to the lowest bidder.
that's right. And that's the point I was going to make, Chairman.
Good.
Sorry.
Yes. Member Siraj?
So right, so there's no documents to show whether the person there's the lowest responsive bidder. All you're saying that your minutes is pointing to the third lowest bidder.
Right.
But you cannot verify whether he's the third lowest responsive bidder.
Right, because you have to see the evaluation form to determine that. But it is still possible to be correct, because you don't necessarily have to go to the two below, because for some other reason had enough work or too low or thing.
Right, they were not responsive.
Right.
Well, at least you have something. For 2018, Mr. Chairman, at 920, it would appears that for 9, projects, for 9 projects as stated in this paragraph, that there are no tender evaluation reports. And then the response was that the reports are somewhere. I don't know if the REO can bring us up to date on 9/20 of 2018.
Thank you. Yes, Comrade Chairman. Here again, we did not see the evaluation reports. But in the 9, you have 3 capital programs, of which we have the PSIP showing that they were completed. I remember, do you want me to read the, I have the 3. One is the remodeling of the vaccination room and construction of treatment and observation room at Pleasance Health Center. It was awarded to Singh Brothers, the 23rd, 11/2018. SIC contract sum was $6,650,000. It was, the expenditure was $6,650,000, and the start and end date was 24/11/2018 to the 30/12/2018. Status 100%, works completed.
But Aria, before you go on, what was this nature of this emergency?
No, that was not an emergency. That was a capital work. But in the 9, which I have here on the current work, I will read them. So 3 capital work which we have that were duly completed. The only problem here, we did not see the evaluation report, but we have seen all evidence here that the work was done.
Did you see evidence that these projects were advertised?
Yeah. They were restricted tender based on the PSIP form for the capital work. They were restricted tenders.
And notwithstanding a lack of evaluation report, since they were restrictive tenders, you have information as to how many persons would have bid via this route of, or how many persons would have been invited to submit bids for these projects?
If we had found the 2018 minutes, tender board minutes, but such as we may, we could not have located the 2018 tender board minutes. We found the 2017. But the fact that it is here indicates to me and to the team, because we discussed it, that they were, and the engineer, they were completed. The other program, one of them was a warrant in the Victoria Park. And it was not completed, but the remainder of the money was remitted to the consolidated fund. We have the receipts to show. The other 4 projects, the repair to the Factory Road Paradise, emergency work at the Moblissa Health Center, emergency repairs to trestle and pavement at Moblissa Health Center, that's Susan and Highway, both of them. Emergency repairs to Yarracabra Health Center, and emergency repairs to St. Cuthbert Health Center. The form of tender for these were selected, 3 selected, 2 restricted. I have the budgetary allocation for each, and the status, the start date, end date, and the payment done, which also, I remember, I feel, is an indication that they were completed. The only thing is that we cannot put our hand on the evaluation report.
Mr. Chairman, the area is using selective and restrictive. Can we be told what he means by restrictive and selective tendering?
Go ahead, Ario.
Honorable member, my pal said the right thing.
Please proceed in answering the honorable member's question.
Mr. Chairman, sometimes because of the nature of the work, we may have to select from if there's a pre-qualification list, you can select from a category. Depends how you pre-qualify. And what category?
Would you like the member to repeat his questions? Because you're not answering the question.
But he asked me what you mean by restricted and selected.
Yes.
So it's
In relation to the act, right?
right, selected from a pool and restricted. You're restricted to from a number of people who can do this work, and one of them, is chosen.
That's what the act says?
Right, and as it just says
Is that
here,
what the act says, sir?
the emergency here.
That's what the act says?
Maybe Mr. Maipal could help.
That's not what the act says, sir. Are you familiar with the act? Are you familiar with the act?
Yes, I am
Do you
aware.
have it in your possession?
No, I don't have the act directly in my possession, But to be specific, if any member here has the act, I would be willing to.
But in your mind, what you just told the committee is what the act says.
Right.
That is not accurate, sir. That's grossly inaccurate, as a matter of fact. That's not what the act says.
Mr. Chairman, in relation to 920.
Before we move on, I would like to advise the REO to condition yourself and familiarizing yourself once again with what the act actually says, specifically in relation to the member's question. Go ahead, Member Sirat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, because of the lack of tender evaluation reports for these 9 projects, I was just trying to ascertain as to what would have led to this state of affairs and in relation to the emergencies and how these contracts were awarded. And hence my question to the REO. I know this would have happened in 2018. So there must have been some justification, if any at all, for these for this occurrence here. And that would have been the basis of my line of questioning here. Thank you.
Chair.
Member Mike.
Chair, may I ask this? Aria, you served before as accounting officer in this region. What years were those? July 2010.
July to, I think, July 2012.
July 2012. So in the Auditor General's report of 2017, paragraph 809, you are very familiar with. That reads, it should be noted that during 2011, which was a period that you served as REO, fuel amounting to $733,076 were uplifted for 3 vehicles that were not owned by the regional administration. Checks made at the License Revenue Office revealed that 2 of these vehicles were never registered with the regional administration. Can you provide us with some guidance on this paragraph that has resurfaced in the 2017 Auditor General report?
Well,
Member Maipa, for the record, can you restate the paragraph?
Paragraph 809. 2017 report.
Are you?
yes.
Your years.
Well, I have some amount of, or I could remember this happening. I think by the time this was discovered, it was sometime in 2012. when I would not have been there. But I know that the report was made and the police were investigating this matter.
Are you not
Because-
you sign off on fuel?
Not always. Then you had the deputy regional executive officer then would have, I think would also sign off.
Ario,
But I need to, may I say, I need to clear my mind. Any specific detail that you may need, which I am prepared to follow up to get the exact answers, whether or not I signed those or who signed them.
but
If you
this
will
is a
permit.
query in this 2017 report.
Right.
Which means that you are here prepared to answer that.
Yeah.
Which means that you were supposed to have your documentation to verify.
Well, I did not keep from 2011, 2012 to 2022, but based on what
No, but this is
in
a
the
finding
record-
in the 2017.
Yes, but it was in the 2017, it flagged in 2017, but I'm seeing it back again for the first time in 2022.
2022?
Right. Well, when we were going through this for 2017.
Yes.
Right.
So for you to respond to. So you had to prepare your answer coming to PAC to answer
Right.
for para 809. And more so, it says here that 2 of the vehicles were not even a part of the pool of the Regional Democratic Council.
Right. But I'm not, at the time during my tenure, I was not aware of this. I was never aware of this, the 2 vehicles.
But this investigation, when you said that this was unearthed in 2012,
Member, before you proceed in asking a question, let me take this opportunity to put the remaining paragraphs to the members' consideration. Proceed.
thank you, Chairman. This 2012, the Auditor General starts his investigation in, AG, can you guide us, in January of 2012 for the prior year?
Mr. Chair, I'll have to check back the actual date. I don't have that date here. I'll have to check back the date.
Ascertain this. And
Yeah.
Chair, I would like to ask the REO to provide us with evidence of who signed the fuel book for this fuel to be uplifted. And of course, it will have the vehicle number also that they go to the gas station
That's
with.
right.
Are you with a week suffice?
Yes, Cover Chair.
But I see here that this was a subject of the police investigation.
Yes,
Can we
the-
get an update on
Right,
that?
because I can give you an update of what is there. The matter is still pending. A special investigation was done in 2013 by the police. We cannot find any report, despite our follow-up.
You can't
So
find the
this mat-
report at the RDC, or did you make inquiry at the police station?
Right, at the RDC.
So the fact that it emanated from the police, you can
Police.
get a copy.
Right.
So effort should be made to get a copy.
Yes, Cover Chair.
Further down in the paragraph is saying here that a separate report was issued, which included recommendations for disciplinary action and possible criminal charges against the alleged perpetrators. And the head of the budget agency is explaining that there has been no progress to date on this issue despite numerous follow-ups. These staff members that uplifted the fuel, they're still employed with the region?
No. We don't know if it's staff members who uplifted it. It can be an outside vehicle. That some collusion or something. That's a report is made to the police. Not necessarily staff members went there with vehicle and uplifted. Because then, I think once you got the ISR, a driver can go and uplift. But no, that
Yeah, but the ISR has to have a vehicle number on it. When you go for fuel, you don't go with an empty ISR.
Sorry, you're supposed to
The
have.
ISR will
You
have
don't-
vehicle number, amount of fuel, requested by and approved by. The signature has to be one that is requesting and one that is approving. And if this and I find it strange that you said that at that time your DREO was signing. If your DREO is the head of the program, then your DREO is requesting it for the vehicle, and you as the REO will have to approve it upon the request.
Right, not every requisition, because depending on the number of vehicles, but sometimes if the REO is not in or is on leave.
What system do you have in place right now for fuel upliftment?
Right, the list of regional vehicles at the service station. A list of authorized signatories, the staff at the gas station, at the service station. A monthly reconciliation, RDC and the service station. ISR and amount supplied, as you said here, that is, we reconcile the ISR and the amount supplied. Bulk, only the REO and in his absence, the DREO. And quotations, we have are approved by the tender.
And this is not the system you had in 2011 when this happened?
I would want to believe so.
You would want to believe you had this. So, who authorized in 2011? You or the DREO?
That's what I'll have to check. I cannot.
Well, I'll expect some verification on that. So, verify on this, and if we can also have a copy of perhaps the latest report you have from the police pertaining to this particular paragraph, because this is under your year, and I'm sure you would want to clear this.
Definitely.
Thanks, Chair.
Member Siraj.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 9/23/2018. Mr. Chairman, it's not clear from the response of the REO what is the current status of this particular matter here. It is stated here that a contract was awarded for the construction of Supply Health Center on East Bank for the sum of 30.1 million. There's an engineer estimate of 32 million, and as of December 2018, $4.4 million was paid to the contractor. This contract was terminated. I think this matter was challenged by the contractor legally, the termination that is, but it's not clear from the REO's response what is the current situation. It is stated here that the RDC did not respond within the time frame of 30 days, but I don't know what implication this has for the overpayment. So can we be brought up to date on what is the situation here?
Mr. Chairman.
Ario.
This matter has not been finalized, as the honorable member said, because the last request or from the audit department is that the contractor should repay. Subsequent to that, the contractor took legal action, to which the region response was that let me just get the region response was that the contractor still has to pay. The contractor is saying that he should not pay because of the tests that were done. Prove him correct. And as I have it here tabulated, the matter was, as I said, he investigated and the following position was established. Report of the foundation lead was not in compliance. There's a report that the foundation lead was not in compliance with the specified requirement. As a result, 2 tests to recheck the integrity of the foundation were done. One by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure using the non-destruct electronic Smith-Hammer test found that the foundation to be in compliance with the requirement. We have those reports. The second test was by the regional executive officer then,
a second opinion to engage the University of Guyana. This result showed a PSI of 1500, which was deemed below the required strength. A third test was done with both testing agencies and engineers together. The results mirrored the previous tests by the respective entities. The project, notwithstanding, was terminated. The contractor challenged termination legally, and the RDC did not respond within the time frame of 30 days. Mr. Chairman, this matter, I think, we ask that it be brought to some closure. Now, you're going to take on the 15 PSI. I am advised that the 1500 PSI is a hollow block, is about that. And this foundation had steel, stone, cement, of course. And the report, the results from the Public Works showed a test of 3,750 PSI. And the second time, it mirrored that same thing on the second, but the University of Guyana test showed 1,500. And the contractor was saying, we spoke to him, and he's saying that they acknowledge, or the test by the government, Ministry of Public Infrastructure, is the one that they normally work with. But the bottom of the matter is that this repayment is not done.
Mr. Chairman, was the Supply Health Center, this project, was this Supply Health Center ever constructed?
Mr. Chairman, yes, it was re-awarded to another contractor.
Nine 924, Mr. Chairman. Can we be told, Mr. Chairman, these projects were supposed to have been executed in 2017 and 2018. I note in the RU's response that St. Colbert's Mission and Long Creek Health Post that would have been beneficiary to this solar system and gas stove and refrigerator, that these items were subsequently put into use. Can we be told when these items were put into use?
Area?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, the Long Creek panels of maternity wing was completed in 2020, and those solar panels were installed in 2020.
Go ahead, member.
There was some amount of repayments based on the findings of the general. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. There are $3.5 million overpayment. There have been some amount of refund on this project. Me too. Can we be told, Mr. Chairman, by the accounting officer, what is the current status with this project here?
Mr. Chairman, the Suzdike Medics Quarters, the overpayment still stands, but the revisit will be done sometime in this week to establish the exact position at 928. The LBI Secondary School, there are two payments, 263,000, one in 2019 for 50,000, and 2020, 31st of August, 213,892. That has been refunded totally. The Jones Mining Engineer Construction Service repairs to the culvert and northern section entrance gate teachers quarters compound. That was revisited and that was cleared. Right? The work was verified and cleared by the audit. The repairs to Strasby Primary School, 543,000, receipt number 998492, dated 16/9/2021, repaid. Emergency works at Strathaven Primary School, there was an overpayment of 778,000. To date, we have received 420,000 with a remainder of 358,000. We have spoken to Classy Construction, call him in, and he is promised to continue. He has made since 2018 payments of 100,000, a next one in 2019, 100,000, a next one in 2018, sorry, the date again, 100,000, one in 2019, again 100,000, and the last one in 2020 of 20,000, bringing it to a total of 420,000 with a remainder of 358. Some contractors have indicated their willingness to repay, and even albeit in these amounts. We contacted this contractor late last year, and he has agreed to make a next payment until he has completed it. Of course, the receipts are there. We have supplied the receipts.
Chair, I just want to note for the same paragraph that this is a large sum of overpayment, Ario. And I trust that you're taking note to what I said earlier. And I trust the engineer is also paying close attention because this is a large sum of overpayment.
Members, there being no other questions, Ari, I want to thank you for making an appearance and remind you, sir, that you have a week to supply the PSC with the information that is required. I trust that you would heed the advice provided. There are other sources that you could access information if it is not readily available at the RDC. And with your experience, I figure you probably would have forgotten, but the PSC has assisted in reminding you of some of the source places you can go and reclaim those important documents. With that said, I want to thank you on behalf of the committee to make an appearance and bid you the best for the rest of the day, sir.
Chairman, would also thank you on behalf of the region for your questions and your guidance during the course of this. Thank you very much too.
We will take the time when the team leaves for us to go through the supplemental information, which was item 2 on the agenda, so that we can wrap up today's